Welcome to Study Time, a televised home learning program produced by Rwanda Basic Education Board.
Hello, dear students of Senior 1. Once again, we are in the chemistry class. We are now going to look at unit number 9. This is waste materials. Waste materials. This is lesson number 1. We look at the types of waste materials. We look at the sources. We look at the hazards and how we can manage these waste materials. This is what we are just going to look at. Do you have wastes at home? What are wastes? In your own words, can you define what a waste material is? Do you produce wastes at school? Are there some wastes that you produce at school? Are there some wastes at home? I'm sure the answer is yes. And what are those wastes? And in which form are these wastes in? Where are they coming from if we are talking about the sources? Are these wastes useful or they are harmful? So we look at the hazards and then how do you manage the wastes at home? If you're at home, you produce the wastes. Either you are in the kitchen, there are some leftovers. I'm sure that one happens. When you finish eating, there are some which are left. When you're at school, you produce, there are some papers, you find some papers scattered in class, and you say they are wastes, you don't need them, you throw them in the dustbin. Those are the wastes you produce. In the laboratories, there are some chemicals that are used, and that one also become a waste. In the hospitals, those wastes are produced. Even in the industries, the wastes are also produced. So we look at the types, we look at the sources, we look at the effects, and then look at how we can manage these sources within this lesson. My dear students of Senior 1, as you are always ready, I hope you are also ready as well, even now, with your notebooks and pens to write down some important information that will be displaying, that I'll be speaking and displaying on the screen so that you capture some information that will help you to move ahead and do the research. This is not all of it. So there is some more that you need to do your own research and then from the books or from the internet. Let's move on. Waste, when we talk about the waste, it is a pressing environmental, social, and economic issue worldwide. So if there are wastes that are produced, they are not produced at home only, at your home only. If it is a general issue, there are some other families, there are other countries, even not only Rwanda, that wastes are produced. And the issue is, what do we do with these wastes? Because it is environmental issue. It is pressing environmental issue. These wastes go into the environment. Are they good for the environment? That's the question you would ask yourself. Of course, the answer is no. That is why it is a pressing issue, economically and socially, all over the world, and Rwanda inclusive as well. Increasing consumption in developing economies continues to generate large amounts of wastes. As a result, more effort is required to reduce these wastes. While waste was viewed as disposable in the past, So we call them something that you can throw away. Today, it is not like that. It is being increasingly recognized as a resource. So that is why we are talking about management of waste resources. We are not talking as something that you will throw away completely. There is something that you can do with that waste that can also be beneficial to you and the country and your neighbor as in whole. This is reflected in a way waste management is shifting away from just disposal to recycling and discovery, and recovery. So maybe in the past we would just throw away outside. You just get the house and throw it, just get them from either the house, from wherever they are produced, and just throw them away. So that one would just called disposal. But there has been a change, recycling and recovery. These plastic bottles can be recycled again and be reused again, or make some other substances. So think of how the waste materials around you can be recycled and reused. Think. So don't always wait for either some people to come and collect the wastes. What can you do with the wastes at home? Can you make something useful out of it? That is why I said you need to make more research. What can I make out of this bottle that I'm going to throw away? Can I make something else out of it? What about these leftovers that you, after eating, you just throw? What can we do with this food that we just throw away? Can we do something out of it? Either converted into manure, but converting into manure will not be done in the house, inside the house. So you have to think about that as we go along the lesson. Waste is any worthless or defective substance. Worthless or defective substance which is discarded after primary use. So when we talk about the waste, something that is, you may think is not useful again. So after using it, just throw. That is for the first time. The primary use is the first time we use that substance. Waste materials can also be defined as unwanted or unusable materials. Although waste materials are usually considered to be pollutants and obstacles, most of them can be reused and recycled. So in most cases, we always think that the waste materials are just wastes, as the name suggests. But we need to think that these wastes can be reused and can be recycled and then reused once again. Recycling waste materials not only save our natural resources, it also saves the energy. Great amounts of energy are used when making new products from raw materials. Recycling already existing materials requires less energy. This also goes hand in hand with the air pollution that we are discussing in the previous lesson. These recycled materials use less energy compared to those materials that are being made for the first time. And therefore, as I said earlier, when the material uses less energy, that means you are even cutting down the costs of energy. And in addition to that, you are even cutting down the amount of pollution to the environment, because less energy is used and that means less fossil fuels being burnt. As a result, less pollution is occurring. So we can also look at the types of waste materials. So we just try to categorize them. So waste materials can be categorized according to their sources. That is a very important point to note. According to their sources, that is one way of categorizing. And nature, where do they come from? And how do they appear? Are they solids? Are they liquids? Are they gases? So we can categorize them in that form. The source, that is the origin, where they can be, where they can come from, where they're produced, and the nature, in which form are these wastes. According to their nature, waste materials can be categorized into the following substances. Solid wastes, that is an example. So you can look at the wastes that you produce at home. You'll find some of them are in solid form. When you buy water from the supermarket or from the boutique somewhere, you take it home. That substance, the bottle, becomes useless after taking the water. The water is it is in solid form. So these solid form substances can be either biodegradable or non-biodegradable. Biodegradable means they can be decomposed by bacteria. There are some substances you throw, like a piece of paper. When you throw it down after some few days, then you'll find the paper has disappeared. It is decomposed naturally, biologically, by the bacteria in the environment. Non-biodegradable. Those are substances that cannot be decomposed biologically. That is by bacteria in the environment. So those are very dangerous. So the solid substances are either biodegradable or non-degradable. So what are the biodegradable substances? We have mentioned these are solid wastes that can be broken into simple compounds by microorganisms, mainly bacteria and some other organisms. Examples of such biodegradable solid wastes include remains of plants and animals, wastes from animals, papers, cotton wool, clothes, all these, they are in solid form, but they are biodegradable. They can be decomposed by the bacteria. You throw them to the environment, after some time, you'll not find them in the environment, because bacteria can act on them and convert them into another form, like the soil or manure, and so on. So it is very important to note that the solid wastes can be either biodegradable or non-biodegradable. So you'll have to look at some of the examples, some of the wastes that you produce at home, then classify them. Are they solids? Yes. If they are solids, are they biodegradable or non-biodegradable? That is the question that you need. Look around, because we produce wastes every day, every time, wherever we are. Whether at home, whether at school, whether in the working places, in towns, everywhere, in the markets, all these wastes are being created. Non-biodegradable solid wastes. These are solid wastes which cannot be broken down by microorganisms, as we have mentioned, and we have some of the examples. We have polythene bags. We have metal scraps. We have pieces of glass and plastics. These are solid wastes that are non-biodegradable. Some pesticides, such as DDT, are non-biodegradable if they find their way into the soil. But are the pesticides in solid form? That is something we need to ask. There are some which are in solid form, like in powder form. And there are some which are in liquid form. So it is important to note that these pesticides get into the atmosphere, get into the environment, and they are non-biodegradable. So you need to note of that. How fast do things biodegrade? This is very important. I'm just going to go slowly on this, and you see the dangers of these substances that we throw out. Because when you throw it out and it does not decompose, then it will have harmful effects on the environment where you have thrown, and at the end of the day, those effects come back to you, either directly or indirectly. Now look at the vegetables. These are the food. It combines all the food that we eat. For them to decompose, it will take them 5 to 1 month. 5 to 1 month. 5 days to 1 month. Just imagine that one. 5 days. And you may think that's something that will decompose within a day. When you look at the paper, the papers that we produce, either in the office, at schools, wherever we are, even in the homes, you'll find this one takes 2 to 5 months to decompose. Cotton t-shirt or a cotton shirt, it will take 6 months to decompose. Orange peels, you look at them and you think they look soft, but they take 6 months to decompose. These number of years, the number of periods are scientifically proved and confirmed. Tree leaves, the leaves that fall from the tree, they are biodegradable as well, but they take 1 year. Wool socks, they will take 1 to 5 years. Plastic coated paper, milk cartons, because most of the milk that we take is in the cartons, it is packed in the cartons. That carton, when you have taken the milk, it will take 5 years to decompose. Leather shoes will take 25 to 40 years, just imagine. Nylon fabrics will take 30 to 40 years. Tin cans, so these tin cans where you'll find there is, some of the examples which are common is tomato sauce that is packed in there. You'll find like fish and some other food packed in those tin cans. A tin can to decompose takes 50 to 100 years. So it may not decompose during your lifetime, because there are very few people that live beyond 100 years. And that tin can is there. The aluminum cans, 80 to 100 years. Glass bottles, these glasses that we use, they are made, decompose million years, 1 million years. You throw down the glass, these broken pieces of the glass, you throw them down. 1 million years for them to decompose. Styrofoam cups, these styrofoam cups that we usually use for coffee. When you go to the restaurants, and they put coffee for you and you just say, I just want to go taking my coffee. These ones take 500 years. So don't throw them anywhere, because these have a very, very harmful effect on the environment. The plastic bags, like polythene papers, 500 years. So it is very important to take note of that. I'm just mentioning this, that the wastes that we produce at home have got drastic effects on our health at a later stage because they may not be decomposed by bacteria. So that's why I came up with this, for you to understand that you need to take caution of the wastes that you produce and think twice where these wastes are going. Are they going to environment? The most important thing is to think of how these wastes can be recycled. Liquid wastes, these include household waste such as water from the kitchen, the bathroom, and urinals. It also includes liquid chemicals from industries. That one I will not talk about much of them because they are very common from kitchens, either at school or at home, and even chemicals from the industries. So when they get their way into the water bodies, then very harmful effect on the aquatic life, and of course the aquatic animals, and therefore at the end of the day will also be affected. Gaseous wastes, they include following categories of wastes. There are those coming from industries like sulfur dioxide, hydrogen chloride gases, hydrogen sulfide. All those are gaseous wastes that come from industries, and they constitute even part of the air pollution. Laboratories, we have chlorine, ammonia gases. So some of the laboratories on a smaller scale we produce these substances when we are doing simple experimenting, but they are also part of gaseous wastes that we produce in the laboratory. Wastes obtained from the combustion of fossil fuels, the carbon monoxide, the sulfur dioxide as well, the carbon dioxide, and nitrogen dioxide. All manufacturing industries produce some of these substances that get into the atmosphere as well. Now, looking at the sources, there are so many sources, but we can categorize them in some few sources. That's why I said you can look at some other sources. We have municipal wastes, those from homes and towns. They contain human wastes, soaps, detergents from washing machines and showers. We have medical wastes, include drugs, cleaning materials such as cotton, and some other waste substances that you can think about. There are syringes which are used, there are some containers of drugs, and so many others. All those are produced from hospitals. Then we have industrial wastes. These include mainly the toxic gases. The sulfur dioxide that we have mentioned, which may dissolve in the moisture and turn into acid rain, salts, mercury, and compounds. The effects of acid rain is so alarming. It may destroy the statues made of cement, the houses, may destroy even some plants, and many others. Even acidification of water bodies also comes from this. So we can talk about the sources of wastes at school level and their management. These wastes that come from the classes, comes from the laboratory, the kitchen at school. So the broken glasses, because when we are in the laboratories, we break the glasses. It is unavoidable because of some accidents. The chemicals are spilled. Kitchen wastes, the fruits, the vegetables, and the food leftovers. The classroom wastes, those are the torn papers, old news magazines, and used stationery. You'll find scattered in them. Those are some of the wastes that are produced within the school. So we need to take note of that, some of those wastes that are produced. But what is very important is that we need to remember that these wastes are hazardous to ourselves, to the environment, to the organisms that live in the environment, including the aquatic organisms, because these wastes get into their way to the water bodies. So what are these hazards? We need also to discuss briefly about these hazards. So the sewage contains disease-causing organisms. So when we talk about the sewage, this is the water mixed with some leftovers of the food from our houses, from the kitchen that we produce, which include bacteria and fungi. These can cause diseases such as cholera, such as typhoid, and many other waterborne diseases can also be even arise from such wastes. Non-biodegradable wastes, such as polythene bags, destroy soil structure. This leads to poor soils that cannot support growth of plants. We have seen those polythene bags just thrown away. We are just lucky that there is a policy that prevents the use of those polythene bags in our country. 500 years for them to decompose, and therefore the soil aeration, the soil drainage will be damaged, and therefore the soils won't be able to support the plant growth. Some gaseous wastes causes dizziness and headaches. When we're in the lab, there are some gases that are produced. They also cause impaired vision and contribute to the formation of acid rain, some of these gases that are produced. This kind of rain causes damage to crops and buildings, the buildings which are made of crops, which are made of cement. So how do we manage these? There are various ways of managing the wastes. We can bury them, use it to dispose of animal carcasses. So you find some dogs are being hit by a vehicle in the road, and it creates a lot of uneasy smell around. So you can even bury it, because for it can decompose. It becomes a waste when it's that. Recycling. This is an economical way of managing waste, as it is usually expensive to manufacture new products. Once you have the product, make sure you recycle and get a new one. Sensitizing the community to build toilets, clean homes, and dig pits for biodegradable wastes. So those wastes that can be biodegraded, dig the pit, put them there, and then you'll have your compost manure after some time. Separation and incineration of waste in hospitals after use, that is banned, that includes banning. Use of septic tanks to store wastewater before treatment for recycling. So that is the sewage we are talking about in particular. Dear students, I hope you have picked something in our lesson today, and I hope you can still go ahead and make a research with this information. This was the lesson number 1, so you can still go ahead and even make a research and have some more information, because it is not all that we have mentioned here in this lesson. Thank you so much. Have a good day. Bye-bye.